be talking about elements of plot. Let's get started, shall we? So, when we're talking about plot elements, we're going to be talking about the basic plot of stories. So this should look familiar like an English class that you've learned all your life, but we're going to review them today. So, we're going to start off with this basic plot mountain, if you will. So this is how a story should look in ideal. So let's get started with our first one, which is exposition. This is the first part of the plot. This is basic that right at the beginning, we're going to find out who these characters are, where are we at, some basic information is going to be revealed right at the start of the play. Sometimes it is spoken, sometimes it is in the stage directions. And stage directions are those written things in parentheses that we don't necessarily say, but we know. Alright, so first we're going to start our stories off with exposition. As you can see, it's very beginning. And then we're going to move on to our inciting incident. Inciting incidents. This is the event that sets the story in motion. Once this thing happens in our play or in our story, the rest of it happens. It's usually the beginning of the conflict. You can't have a good story without some sort of conflict. Usually this is again in the first or second scene. Usually that first scene is about exposition and the inciting incident. Then, here it is. You see how, like, in the diagram, we have our exposition and everything's going along, and bam, something happens, and then we're going to go up. That's what the inciting incident does. Then we have the rising action. Rising action is the main part of our story. It is moving our plot along. The conflict begins, and now we're dealing with the conflict, whatever that may be. And then this is where complications arise in your story to make it more interesting, to make it not just one-dimensional. See that rise in action going up the mountain? It is rising up to the top of it, which will be the climax. Climax is the most exciting or intense part of your story. I always call it the OMG moment. The moment where it's the turning point. Things have to change after after the climax. If it doesn't change, then it's going to be a one-note story. That's past the point of no return. It's a great way of thinking about it. See at the top, at the very apex of our mountain, is our climax. Because once we hit it, things have to change. That leads us to our falling action. Falling action is events following the climax, which makes sense. The conflicts that moved towards the resolution. So we're seeing like this past the point of no return. It's the reaction to that event and how maybe things are complicated more, or we have things like rushing towards the end. Falling. You see it falling down the mountain. Which leads us to our last part, was our resolution, or denouement. Denouement is French. This is the end of the story. Loose ends of the plot are tied up. Conflict is resolved. It doesn't necessarily mean everyone gets a happy ending. It just means we are at a different place in our person or people's lives from the beginning to the end. Something has happened. It is the end of the story. Again, here it is at the very end. And now this is our conflict, our resolution, etc. This is our plot. Plot is so important to a performance, to a play, a good play. And you have to figure out these things, these different parts of the plot to better understand it. Well, guys, that is the element of plot, and we hope you learned a little something and that you use it next time you read a play. All right, Drama Llamas, I'll see you next time. Bye!